Awesome. Thanks, Eric. All right, everybody. Hi, Brandi. And Mary Lou asked me to kind of come in and give a high-level overview of some of the differences between accruals 1 and accruals 2. So when we talk about accruals, Scissortail, has these two versions, and there's quite a few similarities between them. And it's mainly the core behind both of them is the same, that time off requests, time off calendars, and keeping the balances. All of that is exactly the same. And if you're thinking, well, she's talking about this, and I don't know, am I accruals 1? Am I accruals 2? There's nothing that says that. You're right, it's kind of hidden in the system. So if you're not sure which one you're using, give me a few screens. By the time I'm done, if you don't know which one you have, send an email to support at CS3 Technology and we'll let you know. We have about 45% of our clients using accruals 1 and about 55% using accruals 2. We started using accruals 2 when it came out in 2021. So that kind of gives you a little timeline there. So if you went live with a primary module after 2023, you're going to be on accruals 2 for sure. If you went live 2020 and before, you're going to be on accruals 1 for sure. If you went live 2021 or 2022, kind of it depends on when you kicked off. We started using accruals 2 as soon as it came out, and it just depends on when your project kicked off. If we had accruals 2 turned on at that time or not is really what it depends on. So just like I said, give me a few slides. Let me see if I can show you which version you're using, and if you're not sure by the end of it, send a support request in. So in accruals 1, the accruals profile contains the accrual rule for each time off type. The settings and the award schedule are all defined within these accrual rules. These settings are always present, whether or not the accrual rule uses them. In accruals 2, the accrual profile contains the policies for each accrual category type. Some of these settings are defined in the accrual policy, such as the time off to use, which fields are visible in the accrual widget. And the accrual policy has the accrual rules that are individually added and configured, like a carryover, a tenure-based grant, or moving balances. And it's very building block-like. And we'll keep talking about that piece as we keep going. So many of the settings in accrual 1 are still present in 2, but let's talk about where they're different. And I'm not going to go through each line of this because I don't want to bore you guys to death, but I wanted to have this in the presentation. So if you wanted to come back and look at it, you can. So I'm going to hit some of the high points. In the previous version column, that bar column to the right, that is accruals 1. And the benefits update column in the middle is accruals 2. The first line is one of the key differences, that we have limited configurations in accruals 1. Limited things we can do, but in accruals 2, because we can build the policy exactly like we want or we can do with pay calculations in TLM, we can make the system do exactly what we want it to do. And then down on the fourth line down, accruals donation is the only available through accruals 2.0. Like I said, you'll see there's a lot more options here. Let's go to the next page because there's some more. A couple of other things to point out are projected accruals are only available through accruals 2.0. And if you're in one of the states where you've got paid sick leave compliance, it is much easier to handle in accruals 2.0. And we're seeing some states like Michigan just rolled something out this year, and we have clients that are using accrual 1, and it's a lot harder to deal with than accruals 2. So just keep those in mind. Hopefully, once again, these two slides can help you with the differences between the two. Let's keep going. In accruals 2, we have some different terminology that we use. Accruals categories define whether an accrual policy is processed in hours or days. Think about this as a broad category of time. For example, imagine a company has sick, vacation, and personal time off, but they want to lump them all together and call it a PTO. And they would create maybe they create an accrual category of vacation, and this would represent all of them, vacation, personal, and sick. And if you might say, well, why would they need all three of those? But maybe they want to be able to run a report and see how much time they used for sick and how much they used for personal and how much they used for vacation. We've had clients that wanted to do that, but charge it all to a single accrual bank. So sometimes we'll see requests like that. And accrual categories are helpful for that. And we've only got that in accruals 2. We can make workarounds in accruals 1, but yeah. And then accrual periods. We don't have those in accruals 1. In accruals 2, we have accruals period we can define. We call them anchor dates in 1. Instead, we use accrual periods. It's a time period that we attach to the accrual rules that gives the accrual grants to the employees. And then down at the bottom, I talk about a grant period. It's whatever the employee's grant is given. So it's how they accrue time. And it could be a pay period, a month, a year. So the grants are given whatever the period of time that the accrual is given. And so the grant is a real key word. If you've never seen grant before, you're probably on accruals 1. So this is a big clue. If you've seen the word grant, you're probably on accruals 2. Okay, let's go on to the next. Oops, I clicked twice. Okay, accruals, hours worked. The accruals logic for hours worked is a bit different between accruals 1 and 2. In accruals 1, only system maintained accruals rules support the hours worked accruals. Accruals are processed and granted with payroll, so the accruals profile and the pay prep work together for this. But in accruals 2, it actually works at the TLM level. So the time worked grant works with the pay calc, so it doesn't actually require you to process payroll, which is really nice. So it just works a lot better. You can still do hours worked accruals with just payroll with accruals 2. So just know you have an option there. But I feel like it works a lot better with just TLM if you have both TLM and payroll. Now, let's talk a little bit about the differences in how accruals 1 and 2 look in the system, especially when I'm looking at accruals history. This is probably where you'll be able to tell which one you have. In both accruals 1 and 2, the history of the employee's accrual can be investigated from the accruals widget on the employee's information page. In the accruals widget, you'll select the view history from the actions column, the 3 dots. In this image, we see the accruals widget from accruals 1. When we select the ellipses action for the specific accrual, we see the view history option. I clicked and now I see accruals 2. You'll notice it looks the same. I've got a view history under my action ellipses. The only difference is where my action column is. Once again, they look very similar. Now here's where we're going to see the differences between the engines. It's not how we get to accruals history, but it's what we see after we get there. This is my example of accruals 1. Accruals 1 history page appears after the view history. It's filtered in this example. It says Yvette Williams' PTO. It shows the information about the transactions that occurred, what they were, the date they were applied, the number of hours awarded or taken. If you're on accruals 1, you probably recognize this. I've seen this 100 times. If you're on accruals 2, it looks more like this. This view history is for Edgar Lopez vacation, and it's only looking at the current period. He was granted, and let's see, he was granted 1.6 hours of vacation at the end of the weekly pay period. We can see a manual change to his balance where balance was 63.52, and it was replaced with 39.52, where we can see over to the right, remove 24 hours. And then I can also see that, and there's that 63.52, and then, oops, one back. And then I can also see at the bottom, there's a projected grant of 1.28 that'll be awarded at the end of the current pay period. So those are the 2 reports. And notice the word grant going down the transaction type column. Like I said, if you see the word grant, you're on accruals 2. So you might be saying to yourself, so you're talking a lot about accruals too. So do I need to move to it? And right now we're going to say no. We're not recommending anybody change. We've moved a couple of companies from 1 to 2, and it's a challenging process. And until the migration tools improved, we're recommending everybody stay with accruals 1. I'll just tell you guys, we moved CS3 from 1 to 2, and we did it as one of the first guinea pigs just to see, because we wanted to use the accrual donation. And it resulted in us having to touch every person and adjust every person's balance to get them correct. Now, since then, it's grown beautifully, but it was just really hard conversion. Luckily, we had copies of everybody's balances and all that kind of great stuff, but it was super painful. We've moved another client since then. It went a little bit better. The tools improved some, but we're still holding out until the migration tools improved further. So that's kind of where we stand on accruals 1 to accruals 2. So that's a lot of fun stuff. But that's all I have for today. So next up is Mary Lou and Robyn. Robyn, you want to take the screen from me?
Yep, I'll take over from here. All right. Perfect. That was a lot of information, and now you're going to get a whole lot more from Mary Lou.
Hey guys, how y'all doing? So Brandi went over that high level stuff, and it was good because now you have the terminology and everything else that we're going to discuss here. And once again, we're going to go over the components and what makes up your accruals. Like Brandi said, in version 1.0, you have your profile and you have your rules. And pretty much it does the same thing. It's just that it doesn't give you the policies. The policies, like in 2.0, are what we say is like your vacation, your sick, your birthday, whatever you're going to grant your employee, or whatever their buckets are going to be, right? So so if we look here, we have the profile, which is who, when, and what. Your policies, vacation, sick, birthday, and many more. I mean, it could be floating holidays. It could be comp time. It could be anything like that in your policies. And your rules, they put it all together. So I kind of look at it like a recipe, right? So you have your profile, which is what am I going to do, or what am I going to make? Your policies are your ingredients. How are you going to put those together? Are your rules. So so that's my recipe for accruals. And if we look here, what we have here is your accrual profile. And your accrual profile, once again, is broken down by your policies and your rules. So I have an example here of a non-exempt profile. And you're going to have a vacation policy, a sick policy, and a birthday policy. So you can set them up as a tenure-based. You can set up their carryovers. You can set up their earn rate, their hours worked, or however it's going to grant their accruals and their waiting periods. There's different rules. There's so many rules that we can use to configure what you need on any kind of profile. I mean, it could be anything. I mean, you could mix and match them. You could actually have rates on vacation, and you could actually use hours worked on sick, or and birthday is just a bulk amount, right? So you can just grant them 8 hours in the year.
So, Mary Lou, I've got a question on this. I know you have the non-exempt profile used as an example. Could you have multiple non-exempt profiles? Or is it just one?
No, you could have multiple ones. So you could actually have a non-exempt profile that an employee just, let's say, gets, I don't know, 80 hours in a year, but you could also have another exempt profile that they could get 160, depending on their contract or how they're hired, or maybe even like their position. So you could have multiple. You could have several salary ones. I know they do some salary ones where employees are hired at 160 hours or 80 hours in a year. And it just depends. I mean, you could have a part-time employee that only gets comp time, or only gets the birthday, or only gets a floating holiday. So you can actually mix and match. You can, but you can have multiple, as many as you want.
So super helpful for like, let's say like an acquisition that you're bringing in a new company in the mix, and you're adding in the existing profiles from their company.
That's correct. That's correct. We can do that. We can set up for different people, and depending on who they are, you assign that profile to that employee.
Excellent.
Okay, so continuing with the components here. So your profiles, like I said, is who is it for? Like we just discussed with Robyn here, it was either a full-time employee, a part-time employee, salary, whomever you want a profile set up for, you can do it. You can actually set up. We have some clients that actually set up like a personal schedule or a personal profile for each employee, depending on how they're hired. We also in 2.0, we have a personal schedule that you can actually set up an employee with an existing profile, but you can go in there and customize. Let's say that they were hired in at 120, and you can set that up to 15 years or something like that. So you can actually set up a personal schedule for that employee as well. And here it's like Brandi went over the definitions and stuff like that. So we have like a period definition, and like she said, it just defines the period, right? You can have a beginning of the year, a 1/1 plan year. You could actually use an anniversary date. You can use some companies have their plan year that starts at the middle of the year, so you can set up stuff like that. And just keep in mind that if you have that, usually that's when you reset your accruals, or let's say that you carry over. So that's probably the date that you would carry over any amounts, or you can reset the amounts as well.
I have a question on this. As far as when you're setting these up, is this where your employee handbook comes into play? Is that where you're getting the rules from?
Yes, ma'am. That's where we want. We also do a survey, and we actually go through the survey with the client on anything like that. But yeah, we prefer to have the employee handbook, so that way it does correspond to that when we set up the accruals. Okay, and then the policies. So the policies, like we said, were the vacation, the PTO, the sick, floating, holiday, birthday, comp time, and many, many more. You can actually set up just buckets, like you can move. Let's say you have a carryover at the first of the year. You could carry over those amounts into different buckets that they can use up to a certain time. You can actually create banks. Um, we have clients that set up banks that they use like their overtime, right? So if they have overtime, like a comp time kind of, and they move all that overtime into these buckets or stuff like that, and it's just maintained. It's also part of like the birthday. We can give them a bulk amount of 8 hours whenever, if it's on their birthday or at the first of the year. It just depends. We can set those all up for you as well. And the rules, okay? So the rules are what puts everything together. So this is where you set up the grant periods, depending on tenure or anything like that. Your rates, this is where you set up the rate table or the schedule, depending on, do they initially get 20 hours or 40 hours, and then after 1 year they get 40 hours or 80 hours, depending on what they get, after the years. So this is where you break that down. You set up a rule for that. You also set up waiting periods. If they actually, during the waiting period, if they're able to accrue during their waiting period, you would set that up in these rules as well. Your carryover, like I said, you can set up your carryover. You can set up a certain amount. You can actually set up different amounts depending, on the years as well, like their tenure. After 4 years, they get this much, they can carry over this much. So you can set that all up as well. You can set up max amounts. accrued. So you can actually tell them, you can tell the system they can only accrue 120 hours this during the year, or only 80 hours. So you can actually set up a max. You can also set up a max running balance. A max running balance is you actually can add up anything that, let's say you carried over 80 hours and you accrue 120. So you can tell the system that they can have a running balance of 200 hours. So that gives you the option, or the ability to have carryover as well as anything that they earn for that year. So you can set up those running balances. So that was accruals, pretty much on how we do it, how we set them up. Any questions on that, please let us know. Now what we're going to move into some little tips and tricks, some things that you guys may already know, but we wanted to go over and let you guys see these. So the first one is how to view profile configuration. We always get a lot of questions on how can I view it? How can I see how my accruals are set up? So what we're going to do here is we're going to break these up. So we're going to look at 1.0 first. And if you go into the employee profile, you actually want to select the employee, and then you want to click on the accruals tab. Once you click on the accruals tab, it's going to bring up your accruals. And if you go down to the actual profile and you go into the policy, you see vacation is a policy. If you click on vacation, it's going to bring up the configuration for only vacation. Now, this is in 1.0. So this is what it looks like, okay? So this is 1.0 again. And what you can see is it's only for vacation. If you want to look at PTO, you would have to go back and click on the PTO policy. So what you can see is your waiting period, how your waiting period is configured, your carryover, if you have any carryover, and any extra settings. The extra settings are actually would be like your maximums and anything like that you would set up in there. And then at the very bottom, you'll see your schedule, your accrual rates. So this is where it breaks it down, right? So you can see what they would initially get, or if that's what they're going to get all the time, or after 5 years or after 10 years. So this is where you would see that. Okay, so 2.0, it's the same thing. You're going to go into the employee's profile, their accruals, and also click on, this is the policy, remember, so it's a little bit different. So you would click on the policy, and when you click on the policy, you actually see everything. So you're going to see their policy, and you're going to see everything they have assigned to that client, right? So it looks a little different. From here, once again, there's your accrual category, like Brandi discussed earlier, your accrual period, the time off option, which is your vacation, your PTO. And once again, that goes back to what Brandi was talking about, that you can create a list. So you can actually go in there and say, there's different vacations. We have some clients that like to give them the option, right? So they can go in there and say, I'm going to take off a full day. So they've already got that set up as a time off for them. So they can select the full day or a half a day, depending on which one of the time offs they select. And you can also select what you want visible, what fields you want to be visible on their profile. So if you look below that, that below that, there's that's the rules. And if you click on the little pencil, it brings up the next screen. Okay, so this is where you can see the rules. You can see the rules. You can click on the little pencils, and you can open them up. You can see the carryovers, the grant amounts, the grant period. and you can also set up warnings or errors or anything like that. So you can actually go in there and tell it, hey, I want them to get a warning when they request more than what their balance is, or an error. So an error and a warning are two different things. So an error actually stops it, right? It completely stops them from requesting the if they go over. A warning lets them go ahead and continue with the request. You can set up any kind of max balances, like we discussed earlier. Um, they can earn up to 120 hours, or they can have a running balance. So this is where those errors are at. I mean, excuse me. This is where those rules are located. So you guys can go in there and check it out to see if they're set up correctly, or if you want something changed. Your rates. I mean, a lot of people go in there and just check their rates just to make sure that everything is granting as it should. All right, so the next thing we're going to look at is a quick view of accrual balances 1.0 and 2.0. It's pretty much the same thing. And this is what you would see on your dashboard. I know most of the clients have this, but if you don't have it and you want it, just let us know and we can set that up for you. When an employee, excuse me, when an employee logs into Scissortail and they get to their dashboard, they would be able to see that widget. If you see it, it's at the very bottom there, and it's their accruals. So this is an accrual widget, which they can actually see what their current balances are. It will show up all of their policies, so they would be able to see how much balance they had for vacation, PTO, sick, any of that, their birthday, anything would be listed there. They can also request time off from there. So over on the right side here, there's that little bubble, that blue bubble, and it's the request time off. If you hit the down arrow, you can actually see all the list of all the time offs that are available to request.
Now, Mary Lou, I know we're so used to being in this as system admin. So is this screenshot, is this what the through the ESS, or is this through the admin screen?
This is through ESS, so an employee can actually go into the dashboard, right, when they log into Scissortail.
Okay, excellent. So you can always move the employees back to their ESS instead of coming to payroll or HR to ask for that.
That's correct. It's, self-service for the employees, so they can go in there and they don't have to bother you, or you're busy and you didn't get back to them and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So
Excellent.
so it makes it so much easier.
So much
And
easier.
if they click, if you click on that where it says my accrual balances, the number 2 there, if you click on that, what happens? It opens up a more detailed screen. And this is what you see. You actually see everything, their balances, their any taken, anything that's scheduled. It's going to show up here. And these fields are actually customizable, right? We can put as many stuff on here as you want, which we'll see later. Okay, so the next thing we're going to look at here is editing accrual balances. Once again, we're going to break these down 1.0 and 2.0. Brandi went over how these look, right? So she went over the history part of it. So it's the same thing. You're going to, on 1.0, you're going to go all the way to the right side, and you're going to see those 3 little dots and the little ellipses there. And it's going to bring down the view history, edit balance. And the one that you're going to use for balances or to edit balances is the edit balance. And so you would click on the edit balance. And this is what you get. Okay. When you edit balances, you're going to go in there and put it as of a certain date, right? So if you're going to go in there and tell it, I want to add 8 hours to this employee, I don't know, for I guess it just depends on what it is, but you can put a certain date in there. And then what you got to do is there where it says hours remaining, you actually have to add those hours to their current balance. So let's say that they had 70 hours or 72 hours and you're going to give them 8 hours. You would actually have to put 80 hours in here, which would be the remaining balance. So you would add those 8 hours to that remaining balance. And then you have to add a comment.
Okay. On this, why would you need to edit PTO or vacation, whichever time off is that? Can you give me an example of why you would need to do that?
Well, let's say, for instance, that you had an employee that maybe had to leave for some reason and didn't have the chance to request time off, or had to leave on an emergency or something. So you could actually go in there and go ahead and give him his deduct those hours. He took them, he didn't ask for them or request them. So you're actually going in there and fixing it, right? So that way it reflects that he took that off. You can actually do that on the timesheet as well, but you can actually fix the balances here.
Okay, good to know.
All right. So now we're looking at the balances or the history of that taken, right? So we can see where he took, or we gave him 8 hours. I actually have two transactions in here. I have where we added 8 hours and we removed 8 hours. So that way you can take a look in your history, your balances here. It actually shows the -8 or the +8 and versus what we entered. So it adjusts accordingly. Okay, so now on 2.0, it's a little different. Once again, it's those ellipses, and now you're going to see it over here in the middle. You'll see the action column, and you're going to see the history, and you're going to see here, you're not going to see the edit balances. We'll see edit balances, but you'll see it over here on the 3 ellipses that are on the right-hand side. But for this one, it's a lot easier to actually, to me, it's a lot easier to edit balances. So if you actually go into view balances, it's a little different. So we're going to go into view balance now. And when you view balance, what happens is that you get this option to run report. So you always want to run the report, and the report is only for this employee. So once you run the report, what happens is you get the report below. And to change any kind of balances, you're going to click on the little checkbox on the left-hand side. And then what you're going to do is you're going to click on the blue bubble that says change remaining. And when you do that, you're going to get this screen. So you're going to be able to add, deduct, or set. The amount that you put in the box under the B is the actual amount. So if you're giving them 8 hours or deducting 8 hours, you're going to put 8 hours here. Then you're going to go to C, and you're going to put the date. As of what date do you want this effective? And a comment. So now to discuss the add, deduct, and the set. So of course you know what the add is. So you're going to add 8 hours to their current balance. Subtract is if you're going to subtract a certain amount from the current balance. Deduct. And to set. Now the set is that you can actually go into an accruals balance and set amount. So let's say that you wanted to go in there and reset their amounts. They currently are accruing amounts, but as of this date, you're saying, no, they should have 180 hours instead of 100 hours. So you can actually go set 180 hours as of that certain date, and that's their accrual balance starting that date. So it kind of like voids anything that was accrued before. So it starts accruing from there. So you can actually set a balance. So this is Trying to figure out what this is. Oh, so this is your accruals, and it's still still editing. So it's looking back at the three ellipses over here, the right side. I'm sorry, and this is where you can go and edit the balances, similar to 1.0. So it's the same thing. It's just that the other one I think is much easier in changing through the balances. So now what we're going to do is we're going to look at the accrual columns in the accrual profile. This is, you can customize this. You can add columns. You can remove columns. You can make them easy to see. And once again, this is going to show up on that widget as well. So depending what you have here is what's going to be seen on that widget. So you can add as many columns as you can, just take them all off as well. So if you see, this is the list of everything that could happen, or we can actually set up for you. It would be kind of lengthy if we had everything checked, but it's customizable. It's something that what you want to see.
Wow, you can really stretch that out really far on there.
Oh yeah, it could go on for days, I guess. But it gives you all the information that you could need, or your employee needs, or something. But sometimes the employee just wants to see what their balance is.
Mm-hmm. I get that.
Yep. So,
sorry.
So that's okay. So that's about it on the little tricks and tips that we had for you guys. So Robyn?
Awesome. Fantastic. Thank you so much. I think we've all learned tons about accruals, especially understanding the differences between accruals 1 and 2. One of the things we do want to mention to everybody, if you are going to need help end of year, I know we're in March right now, but trying to look at end of year, if you know that in January, like, oh my goodness, we've got to look at these accruals and I need to get a hold of Mary Lou, I need to get a hold of Matt. We do ask that maybe in November you start looking at that, which I know is starting into the holiday season, but it really helps us schedule. And for January, because everything tends to explode in January. So if you guys could reach out, schedule some time, and even if it's beforehand, you want to walk through some things with either Matt or Mary Lou, send in a support ticket, and we're happy to sit down and talk with you and walk through accruals just in case you need some help. And again, different states have compliance things that we've come up on this year. So just to make sure you get yourself in the line, and then happy to help you. And again, like always, if you need any help at all, reach out to us at support@cs3technology.com, send in a ticket through Scissortail. Always happy to help you.
All right. Thank you, ladies, for running through all of that. I know that was a lot of information really quickly. Hopefully you guys were able to, solve some problems that you've been having, or just learn something, is always nice as well. I don't see anything in the Q&A at the moment, so I'm going to run through this last slide we have, which is just our trade show schedule. We have OKHR coming up pretty quickly. We've got National IMA, Missouri SHRM will be at shows all throughout the summer and fall. We obviously hope to see you guys there. We love hanging out with customers at these trade shows. So if you see anything on this list that you intend on, attending, make sure you let us know. We'll schedule some time to hang out together at the show, get dinner or something. I know Mike will be there. It'll be a good chance to meet him. Gary will be at a lot of these shows as well. So we send a diverse team. And like I said, we love to hear from you guys. We love to hang out. Make sure you let us know if you're going to be attending. Still nothing in the Q&A. So I think we're going to go ahead and call it this week. Obviously, if you guys think of any questions, or if there's anything you want to reach out and learn more about, you can hit that support address that Robyn had at the bottom of the screen. I'll go ahead and show you guys again here, support@cs3technology.com. You can reach us there with any questions you have. Obviously, you can reach your consultant. The recording for the session should be up early next week. Serve Access Plan members, you guys will be able to see that, and then we'll get it into the resource library and on YouTube shortly thereafter. So if you have any questions, make sure you reach out. But thank you all again, and we will see you next month. Have a good one.